Located in a busy downtown area, a desperate family walks into a tiny grocery store. Keep their weary faces in the store, reflecting the weight of their conditions. The mother holds a few pennies in an attempt to determine whether they are able to pay for even the necessities for meal, but prior to arriving at the register, the proprietor of the store charges at. His face was twisted with, "Get out of your annoyance, you people. Afford anything here," he yells. Sufficiently enough to call attention to. Everyone is treated like family in the store. Leaves their heads lowered in. A man emerges from behind a shame. He's dressed casually, almost on a nearby shelf, disappearing into the distance, but a serene demeanor demands attention. Will leave everyone in that situation. Store indignant and act as a potent. A reminder of the value of compassion. And the small bell above the human race. Softly, the store door jingled as the family echoed their tentative steps as they entered. Through the little, well-lit room, Lisa, the mother, looked over the shelves with tired eyes gripping her young, holding her son's hand tightly. The daughter, more than 10, walked next to her, his enormous jacket loosely draped around his slender body. They avoided making eye contact as they proceeded silently with the other shoppers while Lisa made her selections. Up a bread loaf in a tiny container of, "Can we give this to her son, milk, Mum?" muttered while displaying a tiny bundle of cookies. Hope glistened in his eyes, yet Lisa shook her gently as her face slumped. "Hey, sweetie, not today," she said. Her voice was quietly replete with remorse. The boy put the cookies back after nodding. The scene didn't proceed as planned without complaint. From behind the counter, unseen, a big man in his 50s who owns a store. He squinted his eyes and observed families like as these before those who in. His thoughts squandered his time and produced. He mumbled, "Just trouble," under his breath as Lisa got closer to the observe, her hands trembling a little as she tallied out. Before she could arrange her belongings, coins, the store owner stepped on the counter. From behind it, his bulky boots emerged. He's thudding on the tiled floor. Yelled, shocking everyone in his vicinity. Lisa's daughter clutched her as she froze. The man pointed a stubby arm tightly. "If you can't afford it, point the finger at them. Don't waste my time by shopping here. Is not a charity." Lisa blushed with shame. "Shame if I have money," she stumbled and held up a handful of, "I only need a few items, coins." The man crossed his arms over his head and snorted. "A clutch of change in your chest that won't go somewhere, even if you have to cover the bread. Otherwise." The child moved forward with his little frame quivering while he gazed up at the. "Please, sir," he said in a voice. "We simply need some nourishment, my dear. Since then, sister has not eaten." The proprietor of the business scowled down at. "He's not my concern, kid, so leave now." Prior to calling the police officers near the store's corner, a man who had been silently looking through the goods placed the can down in his grasp. Wearing a basic black jacket and Keanu Reeves watched the scene wearing jeans. He observed with serene earnestness as Lisa gathered her kids and looked at them. She muttered, her eyes gleaming with tears, "Leighton, hurry up." When they turned to depart from Keanu, but moved forward with purposeful steps. However, he stood quietly between the family and the shopkeeper's serenity. Presence stifling the escalating whispers of the alternative clients. "That's sufficient," Keanu stated his His powerful yet steady voice wasn't noisy, but they were heavy enough to. The store owner hesitated, and the room collapsed. Quiet as everyone's attention was drawn to the man who had just stepped in to help the shop owner. Scowled, obviously irritated. Who the devil are? I can do this for my store, which he snapped. Keanu cocked his head in whatever direction I wanted. His expression is a little unreadable. He added in a calm tone, your store, but does that grant you the authority to administer? People admire this man's sneering expression. If you're here to shop, then go shopping, buddy. Don't tell me how to manage my business, though. Keanu moved closer to his composed manner. Unwaveringly managing a company doesn't imply that you get to deprive them of their dignity, he whispered softly, particularly those who are merely attempting to provide for their children. The store's tension was tangible. Clients who had been acting as though they hadn't noticed were now completely. Their interest was piqued by the unexpected. Lisa froze in the face of conflict, kids clinging to her sides while they observed the events in the store. What are you, owner? He laughed angrily. Intending to cover them, you believe you're. Keanu didn't respond, like a hero. Instead, right away, he reached inside his pocket and took his wallet out, putting it in. This is a clean $100 on the counter. Ought to pay for their groceries, he argued. His eyes are keen, but his tone is nonchalant. The owner gazed over the bill for a moment. Unable to speak, the patrons whispered among themselves. While some nod in agreement, others tug, taking money out of their own wallets to help. Lisa's gaze expanded in refusal to believe that you need to do this. Her voice was clogged with emotion as she whispered. Keanu looked at her, his face. It's not about having to soften. Gently stated, it's about wanting to The store went quiet as Keanu's remarks lingered. Lisa stood frozen and overwhelmed in midair by the unanticipated act of generosity. The proprietor of the store gazed at the bill, his mouth open on the counter, and closing like a fish that is struggling to breathe. The additional clients who had originally been passive observers started muttering now. They were raising their voices among themselves. More loudly with permission, the shoppers proceeded one by one. Show a woman in her middle years with a bunch of veggies reached within her pocketbook and placed a $20 note in the reply that no child should be left hungry. Stated firmly, her voice trembling a little. Nevertheless, the young man, full of determination in a hoodie, did the same, removing several crumpled notes from his. Yes, he responded, putting the money in his pocket. Next to the other contributions that aren't. Yes, an old man is another customer. With a gentle expression, put his hand on. He said, we're with you, to Lisa's shoulder. Kindly, don't feel guilty because you're not. Lisa's eyes were filled with tears when she was alone. She glanced around at the unfamiliar people who had come together in support of her. Thank you, family, she muttered. Breaking, I'm not sure how to express my gratitude. Keanu grinned quietly and calmly. Manner stabilizing. You don't have to give thanks to anyone. Said that this isn't charity. People ought to do for one. The store owner is now clearly frantic, slapped his hand against the counter. This is absurd. Hey, you folks are destroying my company. This is my shop, and I will not allow you to transform it into a free. Keanu turned to face him for all of his calm expression, but you're right, resolute, he said in a voice with a hint of subdued authority. It is your shop, but how you handle. There are people there who speak about. The man's face was filled with, I don't require a lecture from someone angry. Keanu is a man who believes he is superior to me. Moved closer, his eyes steady. He said, don't think I'm better than you. Discreetly, but I believe you've forgotten. Customers' perceptions on what it means to be human. Voiced their agreement in a whisper. Expanding. Human's correct, someone called out louder. You shouldn't treat people like this. You can't just kick them, the customer added. Out since there. The store owner is now cornered and battling. The disapproving crowd threw up his hands in. He snapped, fine, and took your. Don't come get groceries and go. Keanu's gaze remained fixed on the store owner's expression as he extended his wallet once more, and this time he put a. These are the second $100 on the counter. People won't have to return, he said. His tone was forceful but low because today they take all they require with them. He turned to Lisa and said, get everything. You need to take care of your family. Lisa, the cost has been covered. Paused, glancing between Keanu's groceries in her hands. I'm shaking and unsure of what to say. We don't deserve to stammer. This Keanu touched her tenderly. Everyone deserves to be treated with kindness. Stated plainly, and no youngster should visit. Bad hungry. Lisa and her kids started to congregate. The other customers' groceries kept making financial contributions, placing coins and banknotes on the store counter. The proprietor stood irate behind the register. But now silence his previous bluster, reduced to a festering grudge won by. When the clients looked to Keanu for their faces brimming with admiration, I appreciate you taking that. An old man stated that it's time for someone to. Did Keanu give a humble nod? It has nothing to do with. He stood up and said, it's about. Demonstrating that we are all on the same page. Lisa's son cautiously walked up to Keanu, cradling the little bag of cookies he owned. Returned earlier, may I also have these? Keanu lowered himself to his knees and requested softly. Level his eyes with a loving smile. Naturally, he said, and don't forget to share. The boy grinned at them with your sister. Thank you, he said, holding the cookies to his chest. You, mister, he said. I've never met a nicer person than you. With a soft laugh, Keanu ruffled the boys. You're welcome, friend, but keep in mind, being polite doesn't work for Lisa and her kids completed gathering there. Foodstuffs, the store's ambience, changed what had begun as a tight and embarrassing incident became an uplifting demonstration of kindness and solidarity. Customers kept making contributions, but not just with cash but also with the words of support for the family. One woman went up to Lisa and gave her a. This is my number on a handwritten note, she stated. Keanu approached them with joy, his serene manner that eases their longing. Nerves, is there a way for you to return home? Questioned in a kind and comforting tone, Lisa. We generally bite her lip when she hesitates. She looked at her and replied, the bus. Kids, but it's a lengthy trek to the. Put an end to. Keanu gave a contemplative nod without uttering. He took a word out of his pocket and retrieved his phone, and a second later he had requested transport for them. You won't. Must go for a walk today, he stated with a gentle smile. Lisa's eyes are taken care of. Expanded in amazement at how much you've accomplished already. She spoke in a whisper. Why are you doing this for us? Trembling. Keanu squatted to greet her at the gate. "Days since we all occasionally require a," he said, "little help, and one day when you have the opportunity to assist someone. Otherwise, hopefully, you'll do the." In the meantime, back in the shop, the atmosphere has completely changed. The customers continued to discuss what had recently occurred, and their words were full with respect for the enigmatic man who had intervened to protect a. Some family members are struggling. Spoke with the store owner. "You know one man who was direct but not UNC nice. Stated that you possess the ability to make a distinction in this community. Perhaps it's, when you begin utilizing it, a new client." A kind-faced woman added, "People, keep in mind how you treat people. The store owner's compassion goes a long way." Stayed quiet, his thoughts obviously racing. He looked at the cash heaped on a pose of physical representation of but the generosity he had just seen. He kept his expression to himself. Suggested a change, a little fissure in he had constructed a wall of apathy around himself outside of Keanu's ride. The car that was ordered arrived clean and roomy. Lisa and her kids would have to. They climbed in Lisa and made it home safely. Returned to Keanu one last time. "Thank you, time," she replied in a husky voice. "You've shown us more emotion than you gave us only groceries today." "I hope." Keanu gave a little nod. He responded, "Take care of yourselves, and keep in mind that you're not." The automobile drove away by itself, and Keanu watched from the curb as it briefly vanished down the street. He gave himself permission to smile a little, knowing that he had taken a. When he returned to the store, an old man who had previously spoken up. "Do you know who came up to the counter?" He did so by asking the shopkeeper his. The store owner shook his head in a confused tone. Head still searching. "Uncomfortable," he mumbled, but he was certain. "Believes that he is unique." The old man laughed quietly. He mentioned something unique, which was Keanu. The business owner, Reeves, froze. Expanding in. The actor stammered in disbelief. An old guy nodded, his smile growing. The one and only. And what did he fail to do? He did it to gain notoriety or attention. Since it was appropriate to. Does the revelation swiftly travel through? The store left everyone amazed by the. Customers whispered excitedly to each other and a few took out their phones to check. The guy who had just walked out of the shop. The owner, however, stood motionless. His thoughts were racing behind the counter as he became aware of the extent of what had. Keanu simply did a simple act of being compassionate had not only benefited not only left an impoverished family, but also permanent impression on everyone who had saw the effects of his deeds. Would keep disseminating motivational others to put compassion first of apathy as the shop hummed with rumors of Keanu Reeves in the shop. The proprietor stayed firmly behind the counter, his face changing from one of incredulity to something more profound. With remorse, he looked at the cash left by. The client's generosity is striking. In contrast to his previous cruelty, he initially started to doubt his behavior. The old man who had noticed Keanu's approach to the counter once again with a soft but firm, "You have the opportunity to change, son." Stated not only for your company but also for people remember you when you're kind and additionally, they recall that harshness is never. It's too late to decide which one to. No. The proprietor of the store nodded slowly. The breakdown of defenses. I never gave it that kind of thought, he acknowledged that his voice was quieter than previously. My attention has always been on the bottom. The old man grinned. Fortunately, it's never too late to begin. Concentrating on those you encountered today, what a small act of compassion can do. And Keanu went outside and strolled along the street that blends in perfectly with the current of the city. He didn't require acknowledgement or applause for him. What was important was that nevertheless, he had made a difference. How tiny, but he was walking past a park bench. When his phone rang, he looked at the screen and a message appeared from his, reminding the assistant about the charity. He was expected to attend an event that evening. Taking a brief break, Keanu turned to face the shop where the customers continued to converse animatedly regarding the recent occurrence of a minor. A smile tugged at his lips' edges. He realized at this point that there was more influential than any gathering he could go to. It served as a reminder of the silent might of particular actions of her and Lisa's generosity back at the store. Kids sat in Keanu's vehicle, organized the supplies for them in a secure manner. Inside the trunk, her son turned. His voice was full of, "Do you suppose that man was excited, Mom?" he asked, his eyes wide with the superheroes. Wonder. Lisa laughed quietly as she brushed a turn over his. She claimed that while hair might not be a superhero, he is unquestionably someone special to her. Daughter is still holding on to her worn. He made me feel as though the plush animal chimed in. As if we were significant, she added softly. As if we were important. Lisa's heart grew with feeling when she became aware of how deeply her family had been impacted by Keanu's behavior. "We are important," she stated in a stern voice, "and we will repay this kindness one day." As the vehicle sped off, the events of that day continued to have an impact. Customers left the business to spread the word, prompted several friends and family to call to discuss what they had seen. An old man who had communicated with the store. The owner departed feeling content, being aware that he had sown a seed of shift, and the store owner is now alone themselves. Gazed at the stack behind the counter. Funds left by clients for the first time, he felt his activities and the possibility of. In the meantime, redemption. Keanu carried on with his stroll, returning to the cadence of anything he had done that day in the city had been a straightforward yet important reminder that even the tiniest deeds of generosity could generate transformational waves. And while he would never try to get credit for what he had impacted the lives of those he had continue his legacy as the sun started using hues to paint the sky with pink and orange, Keanu looked up and thought that today had been a nice day. He considered a day that demonstrated the world might be a better place, one act of kindness at a time.